Hello friends, my name is Coolio and welcome back to the channel. So today guys, we are returning to Aion Online, a pay-to-play gone free-to-play AAA MMORPG released in North America in September of 2009. Now the game consists of two warring factions, the Elyos and the Asmodeans, and you as the player will decide which faction to join and to work your way to unlock your divine heritage as an angelic deva to fight back against your enemies. Now I have some fond memories of Aion when it first launched almost 10 years ago. I was incredibly intrigued by this beautiful new MMO that had a strong focus on cross PvE and PvP gameplay and also allowed their players to fly. Now I would listen to podcasts of people playing the game and watch countless hours of videos about Aion because unfortunately I just couldn't pay for the game. Now fast forward 3 years later and the game went truly free in April of 2012. So I finally downloaded it, jumped in, and had an absolute blast. I played the game for several months and then eventually put the game down and I haven't picked it up since. Now you're probably wondering why I've decided to give the game another try almost 6 years later. Well, I recently saw a published article talking about the financial report for NCSoft over the last several months, and surprise, surprise, Aion was ranked one of their most profitable titles. I was genuinely surprised that the game seemed to be doing well as I haven't heard much about it online. So I decided to download the game and give you guys my thoughts on Aion in 2018 and give my opinion on whether the game is worth playing or not. Now once you're starting off the game, you're presented with the choice of which faction you want to be a part of, either the Asmodeans or the Elyos. Now choose your factions carefully because the game warns you that as soon as you create a character in a certain faction, you cannot make any characters in the opposite faction. So if you want to play with your friends, make sure you choose the right side. Now I decided to pick the dark, sinister looking Asmodeans for my faction because, well, they're just really cool looking, okay? Now after that, you're shown the game's 6 classes, which are the Warrior, Mage, Scout, Priest, and 2 new classes that I actually haven't seen before, the Technus, which is a gunslinging mech summoning warrior, or the Muse, which is a well-balanced class that uses musical instruments similar to a bard. Now one of the things I do want to point out as a positive note is that there is no gender-locked classes in the game, which I know can be a major turnoff for players, so I'm happy to report that there are no restrictions when choosing who you want to play as. Now when I talk about no restrictions on what character you can play as, I really do mean it, especially with the game's character creator. The game gives you an insane amount of options for customizing your character, from the lengths of body parts, the shape of the eyes, a large amount of hairstyles, a color picker with a limitless amount of colors to choose from. Now I love being able to make my character look exactly the way I want them to, and this system allows that. Well, almost too much though, as you can create some very disturbing looking characters. Now I was very worried that the game was gonna break my immersion, as I do love immersion in my MMORPGs, and I was expected to see a lot of players running around the world with giant bobbleheads and tiny bodies, or be insanely tall with really long limbs. But luckily it looks like all the other players I saw in game had very well thought out characters, and I never once saw a weird looking one during my game time. Now after making your character, you are presented with a small cutscene that describes the war between the game's 2 factions and your place in that war. Then you are placed in the game world, and I gotta say, Aion is a beautiful game, both in terms of graphics and its sound design. Sure, it doesn't look as good as newer titles, as character models for NPCs look very stiff and awkward, and certain textures being a little bit more on the muddy side. But besides that, the lighting effects and the world design are spot on. I found myself constantly turning off my user interface just to look around the world. And also, the game has some incredible music behind it. I mean, here, just listen. Now already the game has presented me with a live, breathing world simply through its overall presentation, and it was nice to see that there are in fact other people playing the game. Now I recently played another Eastern MMO soon, to launch here in the West, and I was not impressed by it, as I felt the game was dead and there just wasn't any other players running around, and the game world felt empty and silent. Now, Aion doesn't have that problem even after all of these years. But I will say though that the game suffers from some graphical glitches, as multiple times during my play sessions, certain textures would pop in and out and lighting effects would flicker on and off. Now, I'm running the game set to maximum with a GTX 1080, and I was still suffering from graphical bugs during my play session. However, my thought is that it has to deal mainly with the game's engine being so old, as it almost felt like it struggled to keep itself together. Now, it's not a huge deal, as I quickly forgot about it and didn't notice it after a while, but I did want to mention it to you guys. Okay, so after all the stuff I have talked about, I am sure you want to know if the game was actually fun to play. And I gotta say yes, I actually found myself enjoying my time questing and fighting mobs. Now, the game is your standard theme park MMO where you move from quest hub to quest hub, talking to NPCs, receiving new tasks, and then heading out into the world to fight mobs and collect items. Now, in some MMOs, I feel like questing is a chore and a grind, but in Aion, at least in the first few hours in the game, questing seemed to be more on the simple side. And what I mean by that is that collect and kill quest numbers are kept quite low. For example, most of the time I had to either kill just a few mobs, like 3 to 5, or collect a few items rather than having to grind my way through mobs just to complete simple quests. Though I found that the game automatically placed me in their fast track server rather than the standard server. Now, with the fast track server, it allows people to quickly progress through the game with friends of other servers, though it does have some restrictions, such as not being able to send friend invites, trade, or write and send mail. Now, the combat in the game is your standard tab targeting combat found in most other online role-playing games. The only standout in their combat is that you can complete combos to unlock other skills to use or to do stronger damage. Now, I chose the Technis class for my character, and she used pistols as her main weapon. I did feel like at times combat felt sluggish and slow, but I think that mainly had to do with my character's playstyle, as I'm more keen to play melee characters who use swords and shields rather than long-range weapons. Now, some other things that the game does that I really enjoyed was the simple convenience items and functions, such as easy access to teleports to quickly move around the map, and gameplay mechanics being easy to use, such as not needing certain items to gather materials. Though I never did see any like ores to mine, so that might have been a little bit different. Now, I won't be able to cover everything the game has to offer, but I do want to share some of the highlights of my gameplay. The first thing I want to point out, and I talked about it briefly, is the game does in fact have an active player base. I saw many people running around playing the game, and I also talked to a few of them when I got stuck on certain quests or had any questions. I was even challenged to a duel, which I quickly lost, so I am really pleased to say that the game does in fact have people playing it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is my character's story and certain goals I wanted to achieve during my play session. Now, as a Technis class character, I had the option to eventually unlock one of two subclasses. Either the Gunslinger, who has a stronger emphasis on using long-range weapons, or the Aether Tech, which allows you to summon a giant mech. And well, I bet you probably know which one I chose. Now, after some fairly simple quest lines, I finally got to my Ascension quest line, where your character unlocks their Deva powers to grow wings and fly, and I also hit level 10 at the same time, which allowed me to unlock my giant mech suit, which did not disappoint me. Now, overall, the entire quest chain and cutscenes in the game were fairly interesting, and it was just awesome to finally unlock my wings and my mech suit. So after all of that, what are my thoughts on Aion, and is it still worth playing in 2018? I gotta say yes, it was a well-populated, well-presented MMORPG with great graphics, combo-based combat, and even though I didn't get a chance to try it out, I heard it has intense aerial PvP combat. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more MMORPG videos. See ya, friends.
A dark time has come, but we cannot let despair undo us. We shall look to you to stand strong in this trying time.